Josh, the President and you have frequently made the case that the choice when it comes to Iran's nuclear program is either the deal that has been negotiated or a march towards war. We now have heard from two top military officials that is not the choice. There are a range of options. Martin Dempsey said, I can tell you we have a range of options. The Chief of Naval Operations, Admiral Richardson, said there are other options besides going to war. What do you say to that? It seems directly in contradiction to what you've been saying for months.
Well, John, we have heard some critics suggest that there is an alternative here.
These aren't critics. These are top military advisors of the President who are saying there are options besides this deal and war.
Yeah. Well, I haven't seen the specific comments of General Dempsey. The one that I did see from him is he said that relieving the risk of a nuclear conflict with Iran diplomatically is superior to trying to do that militarily.
But they were both asked directly before the Senate whether or not there are options besides this deal and war, and both of them said there are a range of options between those two that you kind of presented as the two options.
Well, again, I didn't see every minute of the testimony yesterday, and I haven't seen a specific plan that anybody has put forward. Let me explain to you why we've made the case that there is no other viable alternative, and it's simply this, that we have seen that since the deal has been announced a couple weeks ago now, 86 countries have issued public statements in support of the agreement. That is an illustration of how isolated the United States would be if the Congress were to kill this deal. And let me explain to you why. I know that there have been some who have suggested that, well, the United States could merely reimpose sanctions. Well, let me explain to you why that's not a viable option. Among these 86 countries who have issued public support for the agreement include not just the other countries who are involved in negotiating it, the members of the P5+1. It also includes the 6 countries that are currently allowed to import Iranian oil at restricted lower levels. So you'll recall that there are a lot of countries who, when these sanctions were initially announced, expressed some reservations about whether or not they'd be able or willing to go along with them. And that's because their economies relied significantly on the ability to import Iranian oil. So certainly those 6 countries did eventually go along with the sanctions because they saw it as our best way to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. It's hard to imagine that those 6 countries are going to be willing to reimpose sanctions unilaterally just because the Congress isn't satisfied with the agreement.
But I'd say you have a lot of Democrats who are critical of this deal, who are either opposed to it or undecided. I mean, even last I checked, Bernie Sanders was undecided about whether or not to support. Do you really think that as Bernie Sanders is weighing his options here, he's weighing whether or not to support war or support this deal? I mean, are you really saying that those are the two options? Do you see how that kind of rubs some of these people the wrong way who are trying to take a thoughtful look at this and saying, there are reasons to be critical of this deal? Doesn't mean that you're in favor of war if you don't like it?
Again, I don't think, John, I've necessarily said, I think that there are some people who are in favor of war. But I haven't necessarily said that everybody who opposes the deal is in favor of war. I have observed, and the President has observed this as well, if you're not in favor of war, that's exactly why you should support this agreement. Because killing this agreement only makes military action and a military conflict with Iran more likely. And that is the case that's before members of Congress. There are a lot of details in this agreement that we have spent a lot of time explaining to members of Congress. But ultimately, that is the choice that's facing members of Congress. They can either follow the President's lead, who did successfully rally the international community around an agreement that will, through diplomacy, prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon, or they can essentially sabotage that effort and leave the United States standing apart from the international community, maybe alongside Israel, and without a specific plan for preventing Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. We know that the sanctions regime will crumble, international unity will crumble, Iran will get all kinds of sanctions relief because the sanctions will no longer be enforced, but yet what we would reasonably assume that Iran would do is actually move aggressively to try to pursue a nuclear weapon and to try to obtain it. And we know that the breakout time as it exists right now is only 2 to 3 months. So we've talked about when the president took office that the international community was not united in trying to figure out how to confront Iran over their nuclear weapons program. And it's been a painstaking effort over the last 5 years. Congress has actually played an important role in this. So it is congressional sanctions that have played an important role in applying pressure to Iran. But Congress right now is, at least some members of Congress, are advocating that Congress use their authority to actually shatter that international coalition, isolate the United States, prevent us from being able to pressure Iran economically, and almost assuredly result in Iran getting billions in sanctions relief, even as they pursue a nuclear weapons program, and reduce our ability to get insight into exactly what they're doing.
Can I ask you?